Welcome to the All Booked podcast, where librarians Ashley, Justin, Brittin, and Rosa talk about what they're reading and adding to each other's TBR list.
You good? All right. Welcome. Good morning, everybody, to the All Book Club. This podcast is set to release on June 5th. This is season 4, episode 9, and I will be kicking us off. I read for this month Vanessa Lee's The Last Blood Carver, and this was a very interesting read. It took me a hot minute to get into it. I'm going to be honest. She's a slow burn. But once the action picks up, it's really kind of cool. Very different from anything out there, I feel. So I'm going to butcher all of their names because, again, they're very unique. So I think it's Nika. She's a blood carver. And basically what that means is she's able to kind of heal you and know what's going on with your body through just touch, mere touch. But in the society and the world that they live in, they're considered kind of evil or kind of to be scared of at this point. And there's not a lot of them left in the world. So she has to kind of keep her abilities a secret. It wasn't until she kind of went into a person's house to help them out that she kind of gets jumped by I guess the government or the people in charge and kind of gotten taken away. Enters this whole family, this very rich family who basically kind of order her to heal the last witness of their father's death. So it's a whole web of conspiracies. She's trying to figure out how to manage her power. She's trying to help these folks out. And the main folks are a brother and sister and just kind of a caretaker. And at this point of the book, you don't really know who to trust, if she wants to trust them, if she believes them. And then there is a doctor and a love interest who she kind of suspects is kind of a little, you don't know what to think of him. His name is Venkochin, I think is the way you pronounce it. And again, it's it's a society where she has to hide who she is, but also she has this overwhelming need to just kind of help. And she just, to have this power and not be able to do what you want in the open is kind of killing her. And she doesn't have any guidance, anybody in her family, they left what they could to kind of guide her, but she has no idea what she's doing either. So it's very unique. It's a duology, so there is a second half to it. I'm very interested in seeing how it ends. Take it away, Ashley.
All right. So I abandoned my original book, as everybody knows, because I complained about it for about a month.
Okay, disclaimer. I also tried, but I tried listening to the audio of this, and I gave up because I was where is this going?
I'm not going to badmouth it.
No, let's not.
So
let's
I'm not
going to
give
names.
the title,
No.
Boy, howdy, was I irritated by it.
You can email us and ask us if you're interested.
I abandoned ship, which was also a duology, so no shot was I going to get to the second one of that one. But anyway, so I decided instead to read Jennifer Donnelly's new released Beastly Beauty, which I love Jennifer Donnelly. She writes a lot of retellings of fairy tales. So she did Stepsister. She did, what's the other one? Poisoned. Lost in a Book, which was released right after the live action of Beauty and the Beast came out. I love it's. If you like fairy tales, she's a good go-to person for that. So this one happens to be my favorite one, a retelling of Beauty and the Beast.
Same.
Yeah, it's a good. Of course,
I
you're
know,
a
right?
librarian.
I know.
Of course, you like Belle. So this is basically a gender-switched retelling of Beauty and the Beast. So the Beast is actually the woman in the story, who you would assume is Belle. Her name is actually Arabella. But she is cursed. She's the one who's drawn to the castle with the rest of her family. But she wasn't cursed because she was mean or anything like that. She was cursed because she was not viable for marriage. She was too ambitious, too angry, had too many emotions, and she just
Oh, typical woman.
Typical woman.
Just kidding, guys.
So she was cursed by a pretty vicious witch that has her and her family and friends and stuff like that stuck in the castle. And the village is under some kind of a coma where they don't know that the castle exists. Very similar to Beauty and the Beast. But Beau is our Beauty in this situation, very Flynn Rider-esque. Like he's super dreamy. He has the smolder, all that good stuff. But he's like, he has good quips and stuff like that. So he's a thief. Okay. He and his band of thieves infiltrated the castle to steal all of her riches. And everybody else left over this very rickety bridge, destroying the bridge, leaving Beau behind. And they're like, we'll come back for you. They're not coming back for him. But he's clever. He's sly. He's just a fun guy. So he gets everybody on his side. Like, he's starting to get, into cahoots with the wait staff and all this stuff. So, but he's desperate to get out. He's terrified of this place. He was able to, again, thief, he was able to steal the master key and hide it in a barrel of onions. And he keeps saying, like, I love onions. Let me get an onion. Just so that he could try to steal the key back. Uh-huh. So his plan is to leave, and he wants to leave after midnight. However, midnight is when Arabella becomes the Beast. Oh. So every time he tries to leave, he's confronted with this monster. It is so good. You can just kind of fall right into it. If you like fairy tales and you like kind of an escape story, that's what this is. It's very, I feel like it's very predictable, but I feel like I'm going to get my happy ending. Yeah. I feel like I'm going to get all the things that I want from this book, you're going to get. Another thing that in looking online and stuff and reading some reviews, I didn't realize this in reading it, but the staff and the people who live in the castle, their character names are anagrams of feelings. I didn't know that. So I'm like, man, these are really difficult names. But they're supposed to be representative of all the different emotions that she tries to suppress. So
Jennifer Donnelly just
so
does
good.
Not disappoint.
No,
she's such a solid writer.
Yeah. I can't recommend this enough. I'm not even finished with it. I did get further in this one than the other book it took me like 2 months to get into. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this one.
And all her other books.
And all
just read it. Just read all of them. They're so good.
Excellent. Okay, so I also went with a, lighter and more fun. After a couple of months of doing more issue-heavy books, I read The Queue by Amy Tintera. It's not new, but it's not that old either. I think it was 22 maybe or 23. Okay. Very fun. We have been through, the U.S. has been through a what's the word? Not COVID, but an illness.
Pandemic?
A pandemic, thank you.
I got you.
So it has been contained within a zone around what was Austin, Texas. And they've created a quarantine zone, which everybody just calls the Queue. And nobody can come out of the Queue. So the Queue is its own country or territory within the United States. And the families that rule it have kind of divided it into, there's a north and south, but the Spencer family in the north has also subdivisions within it. The gate that brings all the supplies into the Queue is in the north. So our protagonists are in the south. And the book begins with a presidential candidate from the rest of the U.S. His son is kidnapped and dropped into the Queue. Oh. Now, you cannot leave the Queue because this virus, once you have it, you can never get rid of it. And it continues to mutate. They've all started getting new organs. In fact, there's somebody joking because he still has both his kidneys, and everybody's like, "Wow, good for you! You still have both your kidneys." So they have a lot of great medical advances, but being dropped in there is kind of like that's it. You're stuck there.
Wow.
However, in the South, they've developed what may be a vaccine. So very quickly, our heroine, Maisie, is sent to get to Lennon, the president's son, give him the vaccine. You know, he's busy like, don't touch me, don't come near me.
Right.
But, you know, she's like, I'm trying to help here. And then he has 72 hours. The CDC agrees that if he can get out within 72 hours, they will quarantine him for a month, test him, everything else. But in order to get out, you've got to get through Spencer territory, like 3 separate Spencer territories to get to the gate.
Wow.
And at the same time, of course, there's some infighting amongst the Lopez family that holds the South. And so it's like, you know, it's tons of action.
Oh, cool.
Not for anyone who wants to avoid killing because they're shooting people left, right, and center. They all have all kinds of guns and everything.
So it's violent. Got it.
It is violent. It is violent. But the characters and the relationships are awesome. The friendships that Maisie has, I think they're mostly cousins that she's friends with, but they're very close, very quirky, really. They kind of come to life off the page. Lennon and Maisie, I don't think it's a spoiler to say there starts to become some attraction, you know. And it's a lot of fun. I think I wonder if there is possibly a sequel coming because of the way it ends. It's like, maybe it could end there.
Okay.
But I definitely recommend it. I had read her adult debut, Listen for the Lie, and loved it. And so I went looking for another one because I knew she was, she's got, I think, 6 or 7 books, at I would say, at least. She has a lot in the YA fantasy. So Amy Tintera's
the name's familiar. Yeah.
So
I don't
definitely.
I don't think I've read any of her stuff though. But
It's all these monsters. Am I saying it right? What was her? New York Times. All these warriors. All these monsters, and the sequel, All These Warriors, are the more recent ones. But there's others out there too.
Very cool.
So,
Thanks, Britt.
yeah.
Okay, so mine is coming out in July. So this one's an ARC, and it's a sort of companion book to a very popular release. This one's called The Darkness Within Us by Tricia Levenseller. And
Tricia Levenseller. Grave Mercy.
oh, that's Robin.
Who am I thinking? Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Trisha's the pirate queen.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the one.
Okay. I apologize. So
Yeah, that's fine.
my brain went to go. Never mind. Sorry. Go for it.
So an overview of the first book, which actually is kind of a standalone, is there's this girl in a fantasy land. She goes to the royal court to woo the king, the very young king, who can't touch anybody because his shadows will basically overtake them and they'll die. So
like a shadowy
you're gonna woo
Midas,
him.
Midas touch.
it's like a shine version of the Darkling. basically.
Okay.
And so as she climbs through like the social ladders, she does succeed, but only as like a fake dating scheme with the king, because the king wants his advisors to like leave him alone about the marriage proposals. So,
Enough
but-
already.
All right.
yeah. So they start to fall in love, but she was resolved to kill him because she wants to rule.
Of
All right.
course.
That is a wrinkle.
Yeah. So this one is the second book takes place a couple months after that. It's about the main character's older sister. So she's now the main character, Chrysantha. And we don't hear much about her in the first book other than like her sister has a low opinion of her. And it turns out that Chrysantha, from a very young age, has been playing a role of like the perfect, like really airheaded like girl. So like she's basically like making sure that everybody sees her in a certain way, and they start revealing stuff around her. She starts collecting secrets. She's manipulating like behind the scenes, and she does get what she wants. She gets married by the age of 19 to a very, very rich duke who is old and dying.
Oh,
So
get that money, girl.
yeah, so it's not a spoiler to say he dies. And
As old things do.
yeah. And so she's basically really happy. She's free. She's a widow. She can do whatever she wants. She has all this wealth that's under her control. And then while she's enjoying it, somebody comes knocking,
Oh, gosh.
and it's a man claiming to be the grandson of her husband.
Oh, boy.
And he's saying, he's claiming that his grandfather's will was changed at the last minute. So all the estates and like wealth goes to him. So she's trying to dispute that. So the legal like aspects are very, very minimal. This is more of it's basically enemies to lovers. And I am tired of that trope.
Didn't think it could happen, but
Because it's rarely executed well. This one, I think this one was done really well, and I think the author is much stronger in this work, writing wise. And so while they're sort of clashing and being attracted to each other, she finds out that there's something wrong with him, and it might be deadly to her.
That's a red flag if I ever heard one. Oh, boy. All right. Well, we got a lot of mixed bag recommendations for our first
stuff.
part. Awesome. All right. So we're going to switch gears now. And I think the topic that is up for discussion at this point of our podcast is it possible for a movie adaptation to be better than the book? Thoughts?
I think those samples exist. I think there are definitely movies that are better than the book. The Princess Bride.
Yeah,
Like,
no, for sure.
that was
for
the
sure.
first one I came up with, too.
I mean,
Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Okay,
yeah.
but the book is pretty good there. I would say that was an equal.
Yeah.
Like, that was one of the things. I found a lot where I felt like they could be equal,
But
equally good.
the author was very closely tied to the movie.
Right.
And that's probably why I
Right.
really liked it a lot.
Well, and Heartstopper, I thought that now it's a show, not a movie.
Yeah.
But the first season, I felt like was almost as good as the book, maybe as good as the book in some ways. I thought the musical elements
Okay.
added really benefited there. I feel like once we got into season 2, it started getting a little bit less,
Away from the...
in my
yeah,
opinion.
Right.
But
I also think that there are times when, as a standalone, the book and the movie separately are great versions of both of them.
Right.
You know, like, I love the Lord of the Rings movies. I love the Lord of the Rings books.
same.
So they're too different for me to be like, no, one is better than the other one, because I think they're both fantastic as their own medium. So I feel like that's another example that happens quite often.
I guess as librarians, I feel like we get this question asked. I mean, at least I know I do. Like, teens are always asking me, like, did you like the book better? I'm like, of course I'm going to say I like the book better, because, like, it's two different art forms, right? Like,
Right.
a movie in itself can really go and expand the world that you know and loved from the book.
Yeah.
But the book, it's itself, right? Like, it's what the author wanted it to be.
right.
If it was meant to be on the screen, it would have been a screen adaptation, not a book. But literary merit, I think, it gives us more. It gives us more to our imagination and what we would like. I mean, I know that when I read a book, I'm like, oh, I would love to see this into a movie. You know, like, there's always
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them, but then there are also a lot of real big misses.
Of course.
Oh my God.
Well, and even ones that are good. I mean, I'm not going to say that I believe this, but with Harry Potter, I think the Harry Potter movies were very successful.
Yeah.
I think that it was well done. I think the books are better.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's so much that needs to be in a longer, more fully fleshed out
Absolutely.
book.
Yeah.
there's so much that needs to be cut
Right.
for a movie. But I mean, on the flip side, if you look at maybe some Stephen King's different seasons, The Body is great. It's a really great novella. But
It's a
Stand By
great
Me
movie.
is an amazing movie. Same thing.
Yeah.
Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption is a really great novella.
Oh
Yeah.
my
But
God.
The Shawshank Redemption is an amazing movie.
That
Yeah.
blew my mind, that
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
That movie was
It's-
phenomenal.
So those are novellas.
Right.
So you're able to take the
Expand
movie
on
and
it.
expand on it. But in a
Yeah.
lot of them, you have to take the book and
Right.
adapt it to. I mean, nowadays movies are going like 3.5 hours,
know,
but
right.
it used
Oh
to
my
be,
gosh.
you know.
It's funny that you mentioned Stephen King because typically his movies aren't that great. But one example that he even admitted to the ending was better in the movie than what he wrote was The Mist. And The Mist
I
is
love
a
The
short.
Mist.
It's a short for Stephen King. It's a very short book.
Yeah.
But the ending in the movie is earth shattering. It is heart-stoppingly sad.
Uh-oh.
It's so funny how many of Stephen King's movies I've watched, but I've
I
never
had no idea
read.
that it's Stephen King. Yeah.
I've never read any of his books,
Yeah.
so I'm too scared.
I can't watch them because I'm too scared. I can read the books, but I can't watch them.
No.
My
To
watch 'em like
imagination is like,
So in the book, I'm gonna spoil stuff.
No,
this
don't,
book-
don't,
this
because I
book
haven't
is-
seen the movie. Don't.
Oh, that kills me because the ending is. Did you read it?
Yes,
Okay,
but I haven't seen
so
the movie.
you know how it ends, and it's not earth shattering. The ending of The Mist.
I might
in the
have to
book.
refresh my memory. It's been a long time.
This is not a spoiler. It just continues on. Like life just continues on in The Mist. It just kind of ends. In the movie, oh man, to this day, it gives me chills the way they end that
It's
movie.
so
And
good.
Stephen King did say that was the
That was
way I
better.
should have gone. And Stephen King is also pretty notorious for allowing directors and movie makers to do what they want. And then, like, it's not Stephen King's The Shining, it's Stanley Kubrick's.
Right.
So to make that very clear, he wanted to show, because the book and the movie are totally different, totally different. But that's a good example of, like, the book is fantastic. The movie irritates me, but it's also pretty fantastic. You know, like I have a couple of bones to pick with the movie, but that's Stanley Kubrick. But that's, I feel like, as a standalone, because they are different mediums, they are different art forms, you know, and some books translate well to film, some books just don't. And there are a lot of cases that you're just like, ooh, he should have just left it with the book. Like,
Yeah.
why'd you do this?
Yeah.
A lot.
I guess a lot of it is brought up with, like, in my head, like Game of Thrones. Like Game of Thrones, the books were really, really phenomenal. And I don't know if you had a chance to read them, but also get a chance to listen to the audiobook.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this man, the voices, the characterization, like there are so many characters.
One-man
and
show.
And he was Roy Dotrice is his name? I forget what his
forgot,
name.
but he's
I
very
want to say
British.
it's Roy Dotrice. But oh my God, what a phenomenal narrator. I can sit and listen to those audiobooks like all day long on repeat just because it brings the books to life. And I feel like the show did a great job up until the final season.
But the final season was beyond what he'd
Yeah, it was
written.
fan fiction.
Yeah,
basically,
exactly.
so.
Exactly.
And I think a show is also, like I pointed out, Heartstopper, a show can be different than a movie too, because
Absolutely.
they have a lot more time to play with
Yeah.
if they have a whole season.
right.
Well, and now, like, I don't know if anybody's read the Wheel of Time and that whole, So they made a huge deal out of the fact that they're going to make this show, and Amazon was shoving it down our throats. Every time you logged into Prime, it was like, hey, this
see
show's
it,
out.
yeah.
This show's out. It wasn't that great. It really wasn't. And the books are phenomenal. They're so good. They are an investment because each one is over 1,000 pages. But it is world building to a T. It's just so well done. And then the show was just like, and it's like you have the time, you have the budget. Like it was a big budget show, and they had a pretty good cast.
Yeah.
And
It's
it
like
just
the
kinda
rings,
fell
right?
flat.
The Rings of Power.
Rings of Power, same
yeah,
thing.
yeah. That was kind of disappointing watching that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Rosa, you're being
I
awful
know.
quiet
Yes.
for someone who
Rosa.
suggested this topic.
Yeah, Rosa, by the way, was the one that was
Yeah,
the.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting.
Well,
Started.
I guess like I have two questions. Like one, are we just confining our discussion to YA adaptations? Because most adult adaptations are actually really good.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And are there aspects of a story that a book can't do that a movie can do better? Like,
Well, I think Brittin kind of touched upon the music element.
yeah.
You know, sometimes like authors will put in like a playlist, like Nick and Nora's, ultimate playlist, and like
Right.
things like that. They'll weave that in.
That's a good point.
Even artistry, like images, right, in the margins or in the pages themselves. Like some authors kind of do that in their books. I mean, Heartstopper it's art, so
Right.
that. Movies have a hard time kind of.
And I think that's a big part of Perks of Being a Wallflower too, because music is so central to
yeah.
that story.
Yeah.
Having the music there,
I will
in
never
your
forget that
experience.
scene
Oh,
when
I
I
know.
read Charlie at the dance, and he's just like so afraid to approach the friends, and then you see it on the screen, and you're like, "This is exactly what I imagined." So yeah, I think that's an element that's a little hit or miss.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about, like, what can a movie do better? And I think that sometimes if you are trying to, like, an author can say, like, with a subtle glance to look at her, something like that, it reads one way, but when you see it, it feels a different way. So sometimes I think that when a book can get kind of bogged down in the details and the writing and stuff like that, to just see it, you experience it differently. Not necessarily one is better than the other, but, like if you have a well-cast movie, or,
Yeah.
if you have a good actor and you can see the chemistry building between two characters, it may have a stronger impact than reading it, depending on what kind of a reader you are too. Sometimes, you might not pick up on that the way you would if you what kind of a learner are you? Are you a visual learner,
Right.
or are you, that kind of comes into play too.
I wonder also, like we were talking about slogging through the book that you gave up on that I won't mention. I mean,
No books
the
were heard in
writing
this production.
style can be completely overthrown in a movie adaptation.
Yeah.
So very good writing can be just, thrown by the wayside and you kind of miss it in a movie adaptation. But some of the more ponderous, not necessarily not good, but just not as action-packed writing can be translated into
Yeah.
Definitely.
a quicker.
It's also the writing too, because this book that we're not talking about,
But we
was
keep talking about it.
was described to be very similar to Six of Crows and Crooked
And-
Kingdom.
Yeah, Peaky Blinders too.
And Peaky Blinders, yeah. So
Interesting.
I think when I think back to reading Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, I feel like I watched those books. They are
Right.
not movies, they are not shows.
Yeah.
It's just a really well-written story.
Right.
And with this one just failed so tragically. It failed trying to capture that. But it was like trying to have that world building and have those characters and their relationships blending and stuff like that. And it plays out like a movie when you're reading Six of Crows. So for me, thinking back, I'm like, wait, did I watch that or did I read
Right.
it? And that to me is like, that's good writing, is being able to do that.
Yeah.
I think you hit a good point with the chemistry between the actors. Like, I don't know if there are any Bridgerton fans listening, but the season is out and I'm 2 episodes in, and oh my God, I need more of Anthony. And like those were perfectly cast. Like those two
I
characters.
don't even watch Bridgerton. I've never read it, but the promos for Penelope and whatever
Colin.
Yeah.
Pollen.
I'm like, I wanna watch this
Yes.
because the promos have really. And
I
I,
don't know
love
what
her
no-
from
I
Dairy
love Dairy
Girls.
Girls.
She was
so good.
She is phenomenal, by the way. She's just amazing. And watch Dairy Girls. Everybody
Dairy
watch
Girls
it.
is
Watch
so
Dairy
good.
Girls.
Just watch it.
Yeah.
It's
So
fantastic. It's funny. It's clever. It's just
with the
there's-
subtitles on.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have to because it's just
Yeah.
it's hard to think. But again, the chemistry is just sometimes on page is phenomenal, but and then you have people that they cast. It's so like Shadow and Bone. I felt like the 3 oh my gosh, Cass and oh my gosh, why am I not thinking of their names?
I read them too. I don't remember now.
Which one?
them.
Shadow and Bone.
Oh, Alina?
No, not the main characters. The one that they mixed the 2 stories. So they did a Crooked Kingdom and like
Yeah.
so So they blended the two.
Kaz and
Kaz and
Jesper.
Jesper. Thank you.
The Peanut Gallery.
I felt like they were perfectly cast for those
I
characters.
didn't watch. Are you talking about the book or the show?
Both, because I
didn't
read
watch
the
it.
books after I watched the show, and I thought this was great. And then I read it, and I was like, wow, they did a great job casting these characters. They understood the assignment. So that's how it kind of sometimes like when you do that, it's hard not to compare, right?
Yeah.
But also like again, it's two different set of art. Like I think like it's hard to
Right.
say one or the other, but I'm a librarian, so I'm a little biased.
I'd say 90% of the
Yeah.
time, no. The book is better 90% of the time.
Oh,
Maybe another 6 or 7% of the time they may be as good as, and there's very few times where it's better, in my opinion.
P.S. I Love You will always, I cried hysterically reading that book, and I will cry hysterically watching that movie because it's just so
I like
good.
the characters they cast for all of those. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good
Yeah.
stuff. Any final thoughts, people? No?
Read the book first.
Read the
Yeah.
book.
Read the book
Yes.
first.
Yes, that
See,
is.
but now I'm
Even
gonna
if the movie's better, read the book first.
I'm gonna spend the rest of the day being like, what other movies are
Right,
there? Like,
right.
I'm now done for the day. I've got
Shrek.
nothing. Shrek is a better movie. Like that, hands down.
Ogres have layers.
I just I mentioned that to Justin before I came in. I was like, Shrek. Shrek is a better movie than it is a book. And it's just a fact.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. That's solid.
But I mean, they're working with what, a 20-page picture book? Of course
Yeah.
they can build
Yeah.
to make a 90-minute movie.
And the musical
And
was
Mike Myers
phenomenal.
was a writer for it. Of course it's going to be fantastic. So, yeah. No.
So, if we leave you with any thoughts, please pick up our recommendations for the month, and also read the book first before
Read
you
the book
watch
first.
the movie or
Yes.
the show. Thank you, everybody, and have a good day.
The All Booked podcast is written, edited, produced, and hosted by Justin, Ashley, Brittin, and Rosa. All Booked is produced out of the Ridgewood Public Library. Please consider subscribing and sharing with friends, and follow us on Facebook. You can find links to the books we talked about today in the description. Thanks for listening, and keep reading.